try to make each countdown a thoughtful analysis of a specific theme in games. But sometimes, it's fun to select a somewhat arbitrary classification and see where everything stacks up. The best games with 2 in the title are typically sequels that make huge leaps from the series' first entry, titles that dodge the sophomore slump and establish franchises. Our list represents several different genres and generations, showing that big innovation and flawless execution are achievable goals, no matter what console you're creating for. The second installment of Kratos' adventure pushes the boundaries of the PlayStation 2 like nothing before it. For the graphics and the story, the scale is off the charts, as we meet and destroy nearly every figure of Greek mythology on a bloody ride to revenge against the almighty Zeus. New weapons, powers, and upgraded controls make the proceedings exhilarating, and at nearly every turn, a jaw-dropping moment leaves us in awe, standing in the shadows of titans and gods, and leaving no foe standing as we endeavor to change the fate of the world. At the time of development, Sega expressed concern that releasing a sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog within a year could devastatingly devalue the brand. Little did they realize that we were spinning in loops, begging for more, and thankfully, creator Yuji Naka was happy to oblige. In 1992, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 rolled onto the Genesis, arming Sega's flagship character with a powerful speed dash, taking players to new speeds, and even adding a 3D element in special stages. It also introduced the series' first 2-player split-screen mode, relegating younger siblings to second controller duty as Sonic's BFF Miles Tails Power. The original Sonic the Hedgehog taught us that we have to go fast, and if anything, the return of our favorite blue anthropomorphic hedgehog showed us that we needed to go faster. Silent Hill 2 is an ideal sequel. It improves upon the mechanics and moody horror of the first game without losing any of what makes it special. But number 2 is an even greater significance. The game deals with the truths and lies we tell ourselves, our indiscretions, our hidden pleasures, our wants and fears. The duality of James's experience seeps through every fog-filled pore of Silent Hill, through his repressed memories manifesting both physically and mentally in the town, and of course in the walking Madonna horror complex of Mary and Maria, the latter being the former's idealized shadow double made flesh and blood by James's broken mind. BioWare's space adventure trilogy started off with quite a bang, offering new levels of choice and freedom to the player in a bright new galaxy filled with interesting races and persistent conflict. But Mass Effect 2 is the saga's boldest and best chapter. The story takes interesting turns right from the opening credits, and gameplay refinements make it hard to put the controller down. Nearly every character hits their stride, telling a rewarding story no matter which crew members you build a relationship with. It's close to role-playing perfection, and one of the most polished games in BioWare's history. The first Resident Evil was a horror triumph, and 2 years later, Capcom surpassed it. Moving into the big city, the story weaves through the A and B scenarios of rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. It was one of the only action games of its time to experiment with the branching narrative, making fans wonder which story was actually true. New weapons, puzzles, and enemies were introduced, like the grotesque Lickers and the relentless Mr. X. Recent rumors of a remake have all the memories from RE2's disturbing story rushing back to us, making us dream about what they could look like today. While the first Uncharted is no slouch, Naughty Dog really stepped up their game with Among Thieves. Doing motion capture for scenes between actors rather than recording isolated VO was still rather unheard of at the time, and made a huge difference in connecting with the characters. Nathan's second journey is exquisitely paced, taking him to wildly different locales, rendered in exquisite detail, and the physical interactions on complex set pieces like the crumbling building and train are still wonders to behold. Yet somehow that wasn't enough, as Uncharted 2 also introduced its own distinct take on multiplayer, giving fans another strong reason to treasure this franchise. When you disassemble the first Mega Man, re-engineer each one of its individual parts, and then rebuild it better than before, you get Mega Man 2. Refined visuals give it a much cleaner look. The music is some of the most sublime on the NES. The level and boss design is clearly improved, as any trip back to the first game will show you instantly. Its masterful blend of shooting and platforming is given even more grease with tighter controls. It's often hailed as one of the best Mega Men and video games ever made. Metal Gear Solid 2 is a game about what it means to be a 2. Like most direct sequels, it does its job of being a bigger, better retread of a past success. However, through the legendary character swap and strangely familiar scenario design, Metal Gear Solid 2 manages to make a statement that a simple, bigger, better retread of a past success is ultimately a flawed and shallow pursuit. What's perhaps most impressive is that, beneath all the meta-commentary that makes us feel stupid for enjoying this, there's still a very fun video game, keeping everything afloat. Half-Life 2 is so damn good that Valve is allegedly terrified of making a sequel because they believe it to be a fool's errand, even though they already followed it with the entertaining Episode 1 and the incredible Episode 2. Expectations are so high that they might just destroy any chance of getting a number 3. This game is that important. Half-Life 2 features advancements we now take for granted in shooters, characters that actually notice you, physics that react to your every movement, and a scale that keeps growing and growing. It can be both freeing and terrifying, often mature, but with an attitude and energy that has been sadly absent in the years waiting for a final installment. It's hard to imagine fighting games existing at all, or at least existing as they are now, without Street Fighter 2. While the original Street Fighter debuted classic moves like the Hadouken, Dragon Punch, and Hurricane Kick, its fights are stiff and awkward, especially with the pressure-sensitive rubber pads used in the deluxe arcade versions. Street Fighter 2 has 8 characters, as opposed to the original's cast of 2, and it also popularized combos as we know them today, changing fighting games forever. But Street Fighter 2 is a classic for reasons beyond setting a gameplay standard that many would liberally take from. The music, backgrounds, and characters themselves gave the genre a vibrant flair that didn't exist before. Street Fighter 2 is not just a sequel, but the spark that ignited a thriving culture. Ian, Elise, and Kyle ponder the week's news, including living with their Destiny Guardian forever, on the latest mandatory update nights. And you can start your August shopping checklist now with our peek at what the next month of releases looks like. We'll see you next Sunday for another GT Countdown.